I sat at the far end of the table, close enough to hear the sizzle from the kitchen, the scrape of knives against porcelain, but not close enough to matter. Someone laughed. Too loud, fork hitting the plate as she smirked over her wine. Well, at least she's here now scrubbing floors instead of files. No one corrected her. I chewed silence so thick it hurt, eyes lowered to hide the way my breath trembled. Around me, crystal glasses cracked under tension, filled with wine no one would toast in my name. Not one mention of the storm I'd guided them through, the lives I kept afloat. Just the soft click of silver, the hum of polite betrayal. Then the door swung open. A stranger's voice cut clean through the hush. He blinked twice, eyes widening, in disbelief. "Ma'am, Captain." Bork stopped midair. The room went still. "Before I share my story, I want to know you're here with me. Just say hi in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. And if this story moves something in you, consider subscribing." The chair they gave me sat too close to the kitchen door, where every time it swung wide, it let a slap of cold air hit my side, carried the hiss of oil, the rattle of pans I wasn't meant to see. Light hung overhead in a tired yellow cone, left half my face dimmed like they weren't sure if I was meant to be in the picture at all. Voices bounced off the walls in bright laughter that skimmed over me without pausing. Silverware clinked. Someone refilled glasses 2 seats down, leaning toasting arms over me like I was the space between. When they noticed me, it was with the same smile you give the mailman at Christmas. A polite nod, a gentle squeeze on the shoulder that missed warmth entirely. Brooke kissed the air near my cheek, eyes already on someone more worth seeing. "So good you could make it," she murmured, her perfume too sweet, too familiar, too unearned. Carter asked how work was and didn't wait for the answer. Thomas pressed my hand in his for half a second, the grip all duty no claim, then turned to joke about old times with someone who actually belonged. I watched them in their polished circle, heads tilted, laughter practiced. Emily earned a round of congratulations for her new contract. 3 separate toasts, each more glowing than the last. I lifted my glass just enough to wet my lips, let the edge rest against them so I wouldn't speak out of turn. The table stretched long, shining, a divide in white linen. My plate sat cold. Fork tines scraped the rim with a dry squeal when I tried to cut the meat. When I did find a breath to speak, the moment passed before my voice caught. The topic moved on, an easy shift, like wind brushing off dust. I let it. Fingers tightened on the stem of the glass, knuckles paling, then eased. I placed it back down with care so it wouldn't break. Across from me someone cracked a joke, set off fresh laughter like glass bells in another room. A hairline fissure ran along my wineglass, a fine seam glinting under the brittle light. I traced it with my thumb. Didn't speak. Didn't move. Let the sound wash over me. They had added new frames to the wall since last winter. Polished brass, lined in orderly rows. Faces leaning in close with practiced cheer. I counted the spaces and knew which one had been replaced. The older photo taken down, mine missing entirely. The light above the table caught on glass, throwing reflections that danced over everyone else, but broke in dark slivers where I sat. Carter asked, voice casual, "Morgan, right?" Like he was double-checking the invitation before shifting his eyes past me to the next hello. My chair angled off from the main line of the table, just close enough to catch the draft each time the back door eased open, sending cold along the floorboards that crept under my shoes. They talked over the centerpiece I couldn't see around. A silver tray of roasted meat sat down in front of Brooke first. The server's apology for forgetting to offer mine, muffled by the scrape of her knife. I watched them pass plates, fingers brushing in shared warmth, and when mine finally came, the steam had thinned to nothing. Someone mentioned the old summer trip, laughing about who navigated the boat through that bad squall. Thomas tapped Brooke's arm and said, "You were a natural at the helm," while my fork paused mid-air. No correction, just the hush that landed after, heavy as wet cloth. I adjusted my napkin twice, folding the same crease until it lay flat. A clink of glass at the other end drew a polite cheer. The sound, drifting back, faded by distance. Morgan. Linda tried, like remembering late, voice trailing as she turned to ask someone else for salt instead. I shifted in the chair that creaked too loud for the soft talk around me. A plate slid closer to the edge when someone gestured too wide, catching my sleeve, but no one noticed the sauce smeared down my cup. I wiped it with the corner of my napkin, careful not to make a scene. I drew breath to say something about the candle flicker at the draft, but the topic turned before I spoke. Carter's laugh swallowed my start. Brooke's hand waved for the server, their eyes crisscrossing like I wasn't there. I pressed the base of my glass to the linen, felt the cold, wet circle it left. When I lifted it, the imprint remained. I adjusted it again, precise, though no one was watching. Outside the window, the wind pressed against the panes, making the old locks rattle. I glanced at the shift of shadows on the wall, everyone in warm light. My end of the table blurred. My hand tightened around the stem of the glass. Let go. Someone coughed behind me. The chair I sat in nudged an inch back when another guest squeezed through. No apology offered, no space made. I didn't move it forward. Didn't speak. Let the room drift on without me. Brooke stood at the head of the table, light pooling over her like it had been set just for that angle. Catching the soft gleam of her hair, the calm of her practiced smile. Someone laughed. Said her name twice. Brooke, you always know just how to say it. Then again. Brooke, you're a natural. Drawing nods down the entire row of chairs. She adjusted the centerpiece slightly, earned another compliment for noticing what no one else did. The candle beside her burned clean and tall. No flicker. My seat caught only the dull edge of that glow. Carter leaned in, voice rich with approval. Brooke, you've really brought us all together, he said, slow enough for everyone to hear. A light scatter of applause followed, forks set down to free palms for clapping. Linda joined in, her rings catching the light, smiling with damp eyes, turning her face to Carter, only to say, "Isn't Brooke remarkable?" Even softer, like confessing it. The laughter that circled them was warm, curved, built to hold them in. My chair didn't scrape or shift. No one leaned my way. Morgan? Thomas tried my name once, almost testing its shape, before glancing aside to refill his glass without waiting for me to nod. I swallowed, but didn't drink. The rim of the glass pressed against my bottom lip. My tongue felt dry. Brooke's laugh rolled again, low, assured, the sound bouncing clean off the tableware. Carter toasted her by name for a third time. No irony. Silver and glass caught their reflections together. When I moved, the candlelight on my end wavered, bent away. I drew in breath to speak, but the words fell back behind my teeth. Conversation pulled on without me, a current too strong to step into. I lifted my glass a fraction, wrist tense, fingers whitening, then set it back down, slow, deliberate, barely a sound. My gaze drifted to the tall mirror at the end of the dining room, saw them all reflected clear and whole, their figures crisp, Brooke at the center framed like art. My own shape smudged at the edge, blurred behind someone's shoulder. The applause started again, softer this time but still there. A patient beat that didn't hurry. Brooke's silhouette sharpened against the wall behind her. Clear lines, defined edges. Mine broke across chair backs and shadows, lost in folds of fabric and the dark under the table. I blinked. Once. Steady. The sound of hands meeting palms faded at last, left only the rasp of a single breath, drawn somewhere else in the room. I let my own out slow so it wouldn't catch. I leaned a little forward, fingers brushing the base of my glass, thumb tracing the faint chill left by melted ice. My voice tried once, low and careful, like easing open a door that hadn't been used in years. You know, there was this one time. But it caught, unsteady. Eyes flicking to Carter to see if he'd tilt his head, to Brooke, whose laugh had quieted enough that I thought maybe she'd look. I let the words hang there, balanced on breath. My hand turned the glass just so, watching the dim candlelight flicker along the rim. I thought about when we... Softer now, afraid too loud might crack it. I pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth, tasting old stories that no one remembered asking for. The chair creaked when I shifted, trying to lean in. I found Linda's gaze for half a second, hoping. But then Carter's glass hit Brooks with a crisp clack that seemed to split the air. Laughter rose all at once. Too quick, too big. "Brooke," he called, pleased, and someone else echoed, "Brooke, say it again." The table shifted its glow in that direction. Faces turned like flowers chasing sun. My sentence shrank between their voices, the shape of it crumpled before I could fold it right. The candle near me dimmed, or I did, the light pooling around them. My mouth stayed open for half a heartbeat longer, lips shaping silence before closing slow. I blinked once, eyes dry, tracking the seam in the tablecloth. Fingers loosened on the glass, set it down with a click softer than their laughter. My palm flattened next to it, smoothing a wrinkle in the fabric no one else saw. I could feel the small hush around my seat, the leftover space where no words landed. I swallowed nothing, let my shoulders fall back against the chair, spine straightening as I inched a breath further away. The clink of silverware settled like ash. Brooke's voice stayed warm, the rhythm easy, her name bouncing once more across the room, full and solid. Mine lingered in the pause, but no one picked it up. I exhaled, slow so it wouldn't catch, eyes finding the glass again, watching the shape of my fingers warp in its curve. One fingertip pressed a small water ring into the cloth. I held it there, then smoothed it once, twice, stopped. The light from the tall candle at center shifted as someone moved, casting a brief, pale stripe over my knuckles before fading back to them. I didn't speak again. Brooke's name rolled off their tongues like it belonged there. "Easy and unforced," said twice in quick succession. Carter tapping his glass to hers with a clear ring that cut across the table. The sound was clean, deliberate, drew a hush just long enough for her to speak. Light settled on her face, even, no flicker, held there like the bulb was set just for that angle. I watched it spill over the shine of her bracelet, over the slow curl of her hair behind one ear, leaving the rest of us in the soft fall-off, a gradient of less. Someone laughed from deep in their chest, leaned in so far the silverware rattled, said her name again. "Brooke, you always make it better." I held my breath on the inhale, glass tilted toward my lips but not enough to sip, catching only the scent of warm wine that never reached my tongue. Their eyes were on her, soft and sure, the conversation blooming around her words, the stems and leaves of jokes and nods built to support her voice. I thought, like that time, but it didn't land. It trailed, a half-image, like a memory seen through warped glass. Maybe it was the same laugh, the same hush, only different. Like a picture in a frame that used to hang in another house, similar, but not mine. I adjusted in the chair, the fabric sticking under my arm where the heat of the room clung. Fingers pressed the seam of the napkin, then opened again, flat, no grip. My gaze found the reflection in the darkened window behind them, shapes layered one over the other. She was clear, face lit, recognizable. I was behind, a blur just off the shoulder of someone else, moving slightly when I breathed. I watched that longer than I meant to, wondering if it would sharpen if I held still enough. My wrist shifted the glass just enough to feel the weight, then set it down without sound. Shoulders dropped a fraction, no exhale too heavy, just the slow letting out of something I hadn't held tight. I didn't lean in again. The table curved away from me like I was sitting on the edge of a slow-moving tide. I caught Carter's voice saying, "Brooke," again, softer this time, but with a kind of settling. My eyes drifted down to where the candle's edge left light on the tablecloth. Stopped short of me. I moved my hand, let the shadow fall across it. Fingers flexed once, then fell still. No words left. Just the faint shifting of heat in the room, the quiet applause of breathing, The click of a glass set back too carefully on the wrong spot. I watched the room through the slow glass of my own eyes. The light puddled soft and golden on their faces, catching the lift of a glass mid-toast, the curve of a smile answering another. Sound rolling, warm but flat, at the edges where I sat. The laugh lines smoothing over before they reached me. A hum more felt in the ribs than heard clear. Forks moved with quiet clatter, the napkin ring glinting, the faint echo of a knife laid down too carefully on porcelain. My fingers tightened once on the linen in my lap, then let go, smoothing it with the heel of my palm, thumb running the seam slow, like reading Braille for a story I half remember. I waited, half turned, head tilted just a little, a breath drawn in, expecting maybe a voice to say my name, even the wrong name, anything that would catch, but none did, the space before me filling instead with a ripple of brook, punctuated by another laugh that fell forward and bounced off the glass. I felt the shift under me as I straightened, the chair creaking quiet, feet pressing against the floor for balance. My other hand found the edge of the table, fingers sliding off smooth wood without grip. I folded the napkin, not neat, just enough to cover the shape my hand had left. My arm bent, gathering my jacket by the collar, the fabric heavy, cool from waiting too long on the back of the chair. The scrape of the leg against the floor was thin, low, a sound that didn't turn a head. I stood in no rush, knees unlocked slow, let the chair slip back and pause, half an inch away from the table, not wide enough to claim space, just enough to show it was empty. One foot eased back, then the other. The hem of my sleeve brushing the napkin's fold, catching it for a second before dropping away. I adjusted the jacket across my forearm, fingers brushing the lining, like checking for something lost. No voice called, no hand lifted in question. I let one palm rest on the back of the chair for the briefest moment, feeling the give of the cushion, then released it. My shoes met the floor soft, heel then toe, muted thud swallowed by the carpet. I passed behind them slow enough to see the shine on their cheeks from the candles, the light that barely touched my own. My other hand found the doorframe, thumb pressing the wood once before curling back. I paused there, half in light, half in hallway dim, the air cooler, still. The glass on the table behind me remained where I left it, half full, light sliding along the curve, unbroken, no lips to mar the surface. The chair tucked in enough to pass for polite. Their laughter held steady, warm, even. The light stayed gold but somehow cooler, spilling over the space where I wasn't. I watched from the edge of the room, the light resting warm on her shoulders, the hush that settled before someone said her name, clear, twice, the syllables landing soft in the laughter. Glass lifted in her direction, catching reflections I couldn't hold. She turned just enough to smooth the edge of the table runner, fingers brushing out a crease slow, arranging the vase an inch left, exactly so, like it had always belonged under her hand. Someone thanked her for the dish, voice rising over the buzz. So glad you made this. But the name wasn't mine. Never caught on my ear the way it used to. Just slid past like a note I couldn't read. My eyes drifted with the movement, the glint of the fork she laid down, a soft clink where china met wood, the curl of steam off a plate no one passed my way. I held my glass without lifting it, thumb pressed flat against the stem. Watched the way she nodded at a question, answering calm, all eyes moving with her voice. A laugh fell open and closed again, sealing the air around her. I tried to see through it, leaning just enough to catch the shape of her in the darkened window, where the reflection held her firm and bright. My own face hazed behind her shoulder, off-center. There but not there. My fingers flexed around the glass, set it down slow enough not to break the hush. I felt the napkin slip off my lap, fold once against my knee, my thumb finding the edge to straighten, waiting for the question that didn't come. I let the fabric slide, left it resting over the chair arm. I shifted back, the wood creaking low, the seat easing from the table an inch at a time. My legs steady, but slow. The sound of them was full, voices layered, no space to fall into. I let my eyes rest on the candle at center, flame pulling one way then back, lighting the curve of her cheek, leaving my end of the table in a quiet dusk. I glanced once at the frame on the sideboard, the group photograph tilted forward, the camera's focus sharp on the middle, where she stood. Her smile firm, my own shape caught at the edge. Blurred in motion, shoulder turned away, half lit. My lips parted around the start of something, a line I thought I'd speak, but it drifted out, unformed, left only the sound of a breath drawn and let go, the glass on the table catching light without spilling. A server passed behind me slow, the clink of glass on tray soft, pausing just half a breath longer than needed. Eyes catching mine not in question, but in acknowledgement, head dipping once. No words, just the quiet movement of setting the fresh glass in front of me, so careful it didn't shift the silver. His sleeve brushed the back of my chair, adjusted it a fraction straighter before he stepped away. Footsteps swallowed by the carpet, the sound trailing off like he'd left room behind for me to fill. I sat without moving, fingers along the edge of the new glass, the condensation sliding under my thumb, cold but clear. My gaze lifted enough to see Brooke at the other end, turning to answer Carter's question, her name on his tongue clean, twice, drawing the others in. Their shoulders angled her way, the conversation closing around her voice. My own name floated up once, clipped at the edge of a sentence, dropped without weight, no one bothering to catch it before it fell quiet. I watched the server pause at the next table, adjusting a folded napkin just so, smoothing the corner flat with a slow palm, then moving on without looking back. The glass before me glimmered under the low light, pale at the rim, dark at the base, untouched. My fingers tightened once, knuckles shifting, then eased, leaving a smudge I didn't wipe away. Brooke's laugh lifted, light catching in her glass midair. The sound curved and warm, drawing a mirrored ripple of laughter back. Someone called her name again, full voice, no stumble, no hesitation. I heard it from here, clear as a line drawn straight. The server's voice was quieter, angled down. The single word, ma'am, handed over soft but whole, like setting something unbroken in my lap. I nodded once, no answer needed. Felt the slight stretch of skin at my throat where I swallowed slow. My other hand shifted the napkin across my knee, aligning the edges out of habit more than need, flattening it against my leg until the crease held. No one called again. The sound of the room filled in behind them, laughter overlapping like ripples off glass, voices warm, unhurried, not for me. The light overhead caught on the rim of my glass, sending a soft band across my wrist, pale and steady. The shadow it cast narrow but solid, slipping off to pool in the crease of my elbow. I let my eyes rest there, watched it fade and return with the candle's flicker, the flame unbothered by breath. My fingers lifted from the napkin, hovered, settled again. Nothing to say, nothing asked. The chair under me firm, unmoving. My chest rose, fell, quiet. The glass remained where it was set, water beating down slow, no sound. I caught the glance before it settled, eyes meeting just long enough to feel the line between us harden, then slip, his attention folding back to the shape of a smile, meant for someone else, voice even, low enough to make them lean closer. Not me. The laughter around us didn't lift my name, only carried his in the easy rhythm of conversation, spoon against cup. The chime soft but clear, light pooling over half his face, the other falling away into gentle shadow I couldn't enter. I didn't step in. My breath held short, chest tightening just once, shoulders rolling back enough to look settled, hands pressed lightly to the curve of the chair, fingertips indenting the fabric, letting go. I watched the small movements, a nod he gave without thinking, a shift of weight that signaled openness to someone else, the fold of arms at the edge of my view closing the space I wasn't meant to fill. A memory flickered, not whole, more shape than sound. A single nod that once held me off. A hand resting on a forearm, squeezing before letting go. The light that time angling from above to cast us both in glow that felt unearned now. The echo of silver on ceramic broke the image, a soft clang, laughter threading around it, his voice warm and level, but I heard no room for me. The candlelight hit the side of his collar, caught the slight wrinkle in the fabric, lit it like something tender, just not mine. I let my eyes drop to my own hands, palms opening slow, thumb brushing the hem of the napkin I'd flattened too many times, its crease failing to hold shape. My fingers unfurled, rested, waited. My gaze lifted just enough to see the space between us fill with others. Blurred edges made clear by the swing of conversation. I didn't step forward. No breath to interrupt. I let the silence close over my part, the sound of my exhale thin to nothing. My fingers left the fabric, hovering for a moment before landing on the arm of the chair with a soft tap, barely there. My shoulders lowered with the breath I let out slow, chin dipping. Eyes fixed on the line where shadow met light across the floor. He didn't turn. No one called. The candle in the center burned steady, warm, wrapping them in low glow. The laughter still pulsing, even as I leaned back a half-inch more, the chair pressing against my spine, in quiet acceptance. I felt the space cool where my hand had left it. The seat empty but kept neat. The pool of light on the table unbroken, waiting for someone who wasn't me to lean in and claim it. I stepped just inside the threshold, letting the soft wash of light meet me halfway. The bulb overhead casting that same warm glow I remembered. Only it fell now on someone else. The chair at the head of the table sat pulled in neat, angled for easy conversation. The cushion I'd picked years ago still firm, but now shifting under a different weight. My eye caught the nick on the back rail, the one I'd smoothed with sandpaper, barely visible in the low gold of the fixture, swinging slow above it. On the table, the old crystal decanter glinted, half full, its cork balanced perfectly beside a glass I once claimed as mine, the rim faintly chipped in a spot that used to sit against my lip. The glass was turned carefully now, the flaw hidden from view, the liquid inside catching the light clear and bright. Across the table they laughed, the sound round, bouncing off walls I'd painted, Brooke's voice calling another name. Full, unbroken, so sure it belonged here. She sat easy in the space I'd arranged, elbows on the table just so, fingers drumming that patient rhythm that used to be mine to set. She poured slow, wiped the lip of the decanter with a napkin folded into crisp lines, placed it back with a grace no one corrected. They nodded, smiled, raised glasses to her timing, their faces tilted to catch the light that seemed aimed only for her. No one stumbled over my name. It never rose. Only hers, clear. My hand rested on the edge of the table, thumb brushing the groove worn there from years of plates, sliding close, a small indent that had shaped my grip. I let the pad of my thumb linger, then drew it back, leaving the mark to cool without me. My eyes drifted to the frame on the sideboard, photo lit with a soft sconce. Everyone gathered around her now, my shape fading at the edge where the glass caught glare. I let my breath out slow, felt the shoulder seam of my jacket shift against my collarbone. My palm flattened on the table once, lifted without a sound. Fingers loosened around the napkin I'd carried, dropping it beside the plate left empty in front of no one. My gaze slipped sideways, not to meet anyone, but to catch the corner where light fell short, where the carpet thickened and color muted. I didn't move forward. I let my weight sink back into my heels, the distance widening, though I hadn't taken a step. The chair stayed steady, lined up with the table's edge, a place now for someone else to lean in. The bulb above them held its glow, yellow and generous, unbothered by the shadow I carried as I eased away, leaving the seat filled, the room warm, my space erased, not by force, but by how naturally it fit someone else. I sat with my back straight, breath held thin, the edge of my sleeve brushing against the linen as I turned just enough to see the microphone lifted, The hush rippled out from the podium like water flattening under wind. The voice carried clean, the words deliberate, calling out the thanks that fit so precisely into the shape of something I recognized. A task done quietly, a fix no one else had noticed failing, a moment studied without fanfare. But the name was wrong, clear as glass, spelled in vowels I didn't wear, offered up to the room like it had always belonged there. My eyes flicked once, sharpened, caught the shine off the glass in front of me, as if it could confirm I'd heard it wrong. It hadn't. The detail was mine, but the credit landed on someone else's lap, and the laugh that followed smoothed over the error so clean, it never snagged. The applause started, slow at first, then fuller, a sound like rain beating a roof no one planned to patch. Hands clapped in unison. The faces around me turned to the light that bathed the wrong person in its steady, deliberate warmth. I watched their outlines sharpen in the glow. The slight bow of the head, the palm that lifted in gentle deflection of too much praise, practiced, accepted. My name nowhere in the echo. Across the table, someone in the front row turned, their eyes catching mine for just a breath too long. I saw the stutter in the recognition, the half-swallowed twitch of apology that never made it out. Their gaze dropping to the floor before joining the others in the rhythm of palms, striking palms, the sound folding over itself again and again until it felt like it would never stop. My fingers rested on the edge of my napkin, pressing a crease that didn't hold, smoothing it back out in slow motion so it wouldn't crumple. The glass at my elbow stayed untouched, the rim lined with condensation that gathered and fell in silent drops onto the tablecloth. I didn't lift it, didn't speak. The breath I took was so shallow it barely moved the line of my collar. The lights overhead stayed trained on them, cutting shadows that pooled under my chair, making the pattern in the carpet blur where I sat. I let my eyes lower to the table, to the soft flicker of the candle's reflection warped in the curve of my glass, the small wave of liquid that never met my mouth. My lips closed against a shape they wouldn't form, shoulders slackening without ceremony. No one called my name. The applause held steady. The room stayed bright for someone else. I pushed the chair back slow, the legs brushing the floor with a hush, not scraping. No one looked up. I let one palm rest on the table's edge for half a breath, then let it slip free, fingers drifting through empty air before finding the seam of my coat, brushing the fabric to settle it over my arm. I walked without hurry, the sound of my shoes muffled by carpet, every step absorbed, leaving no trace. The door cracked open on its old hinge with the same soft sigh I remembered, the light from the hall spilling across my shoes, folding over my shadow like a blanket. A breeze touched the collar of my shirt, shifting the hair at my neck. Cool, clean. My shoulders fell with it, bones settling under skin. I paused at the glass pane set in the hallway wall. It caught the glow from inside, smeared reflections of raised glasses, laughter tumbling out in muted bursts that never reached where I stood. Faces turned toward each other, not one searching past the glare. I caught the edge of my own reflection in the glass, faded at the corner, a blur half swallowed by the line of the frame. They laughed. Someone tapped a glass with a spoon, the chime ringing steady and clear through the door. I felt it in my ribs, but not my ears. The rhythm not mine to hold. I let my gaze rest on them through the pane, watched the warmth catch their shoulders, circle their hands, the light thick as syrup in the room I had left. My fingers found the railing outside, metal cooled by night. I let my grip close and open, thumbs smoothing along the groove worn by other palms. I didn't tighten it. I let the coat slide off my arm to rest over the curve of my elbow. The fabric heavy, but still. My eyes didn't flick back. They rested forward, lids half lowered, taking in nothing in particular. The air tasted like quiet. I felt my chest expand, held it, let it go slow. My mouth closed. No shape forming, no sound pressing. The light from inside spilled in a thin band over the threshold, cutting across my shoes, pooling at my feet before dying on the ground. My shadow lay long behind me, fading at the edges where the floor fell away. I didn't move to step back in. I let it fall. The wind shifted once more, light against my neck. My shoulders stilled. My breath slipped out soundless. I was half turned from the room, fingers loose at my side. The noise behind me, a blur of forks and low talk, when I felt someone stop just close enough for their shadow to lean over mine. No announcement. No pause in the din around us. Just a quiet voice, careful, like they weren't sure I'd hear it all. "That's what you always said, remember?" My head didn't turn right away. My eyelids fluttered once, slow, like waking from too little sleep. Breath caught, shallow. I heard my own pulse in my ears. The words weren't loud, but they cut clear through the swell of laughter and clink of glass, carving a narrow channel of silence around us that no one else noticed. I shifted a fraction, gaze angling toward them without meeting their eyes straight on, caught off balance by how familiar the phrase was. My mouth pressed closed. A line formed in my lip I didn't feel until I bit it light. My fingers trembled once against the seam of my coat, then stilled. The person didn't wait for an answer, didn't push. Their head dipped in something like respect or habit, stepping back, letting the air fill in slow between us. I finally looked up, properly this time. Found them looking elsewhere already, busy with their own small tasks. But the echo stayed. I watched them move away, my eyes following the shift of their shoulders under the thin light, my vision blurring a second, as if there was distance between us that hadn't been there before. Or maybe had always been there. The room seemed brighter suddenly. Or maybe the glow just found new surfaces to cling to. Edges of picture frames. The sheen of a wine bottle half empty on the table. My hand that had been hanging loose by my side curled slowly, fingers pressing into my palm until they left lines. A breeze threaded in from the cracked window, brushing the hair at my temple, cool and light. It felt like being tapped on the shoulder by a memory. I didn't turn away from it. My shoulders squared just a degree, breath filling low in my chest, let out just as quietly. My eyes lifted to catch my own reflection in the glass of the door. Ghosted against the brighter room behind me, the party layered faintly over the shape of me. I blinked once. The face there was mine, but not the same as before. Still, watching, waiting. What? Not gone. Not even. Light caught on the curve of my cheek, subtle but sure, shifting with the flicker of a candle someone moved. It landed, held a moment, then softened. I didn't move to leave. I didn't speak. My hand fell open at my side again, but slower this time, steady, as if it might close on something solid next time. Someone dropped a folded document on the table, the edge curling slightly where it had been handled too long. It landed just close enough for the seal to catch the overhead light. An emblem pressed in dark ink, unmistakable, the lettering formal, crisp. For a breath, no one spoke. A server bending to clear plates paused, eyes flicking down, caught the crest, and without thinking, voice low but audible, said it. "Captain." Not loud, not grand, but it fell clean, the syllables rounding off the hush that spread like frost over conversation. Forks halted mid-air. Glass stems chimed dully as they touched down too hard. Even the quiet laughter that had been rolling around the edges fell out of the room like smoke through an open door. My hand hovered above the table, fingers curling just shy of the paper's edge. I didn't snatch it back. I didn't flinch. The light above seemed to sharpen, pulling me into its center, carving lines across my cheekbones, catching in my eyes. I saw them shift. Those faces that had politely ignored the shape of me all evening turn one by one, drawn in not by invitation, but inevitability. They didn't speak. Not a single question, but the room filled with a different kind of noise. The scrape of a chair leg adjusting without leaving. The sound of someone clearing their throat, and swallowing it. The shift of fabric as arms folded or dropped limp. Their eyes didn't blink. Not mocking now. Not dismissive. Curious. Calculating. Edges of unease. I kept my palm on the table. Let it rest. Wait even. No tremor. My thumb moved in a slow arc against the wood grain. Not to hide anything, but to feel it. Solid under me. My spine aligned itself without being told. Shoulders square. Chin neither lifted nor lowered. My eyes tracked the room once, unhurried, meeting glances that snapped away or held a second too long. The air felt closer on my skin. Every breath around me seemed careful. I exhaled through my nose, steady. No rush. No explanation. The server who'd spoken tried to disappear into the corner. Head bowed. Tray clutched like a shield. Someone at the end of the table had a hand half raised, then lowered it without sound. I didn't move to reclaim the paper. I didn't need to. It sat there with my name on it without apology. The ring of the seal dug its history into the linen. My hand hovered one last second before pressing gently against the edge, guiding it back in line with the silverware, an old habit of straightening what no one else noticed. When I finally settled my palm flat on the table, I didn't look down. My gaze stayed level, held, king, blink slow, breath deep. The light above didn't shift. It simply owned me, and I let it. I pushed the chair back slow. The legs rasped softly over the floor, not loud enough to jar the room, but enough to make them shift. No one reached for me. Conversation stumbled, quieted. Eyes that had tracked my every move a moment ago turned away. Lids heavy, lashes lowered, the polite retreat of people who had seen too much and didn't want to meet the weight of it. One or two glanced back, caught halfway in the act of speaking. Mouths slacked before they shut them. Someone cleared their throat, not for words but to fill the space I left behind. I straightened the hem of my jacket with both hands, fingers smoothing fabric not to fuss but to steady. I caught the edge of a voice calling my name, hesitant, softer than it had ever been in that room. The syllables reshaped by uncertainty. But it wasn't the tone that used to chide or instruct. It was a question now, cautious, unsteady. I didn't turn my head. My fingers paused at the back of the chair, resting there, then let go. The light from overhead carved out my outline, the spill catching the bone of my jaw, flattening shadows into lines that didn't waver. No answer came from me. I didn't need it. The chair stayed empty behind me, fabric wrinkled by the press of my weight, now releasing. I placed the napkin slow, deliberate, folding it once before laying it at the plate's edge. The glass of wine, untouched, kept its shape perfect and cruel, refracting the warm glow without spill or claim. My hand left it alone. I stepped sideways, not hurried, giving the space to anyone who wanted it, but knowing no one would. A breeze pushed the edge of the tablecloth an inch, lifted it, let it fall. My shoes sounded once against the floor, muted by carpet and distance. I didn't turn for any final look. I let my eyes track forward, catching the gleam of silver, the soft dome of candlelight, the faint reflection of someone at the far end watching me leave, their gaze fixed longer than the others, holding it like a question they couldn't form. The room shifted behind me, the hush not quite recovering, voices rising thin and tentative, but without conviction. Chairs scraped, adjusted. Plates clinked softer. But no one called me back. No one offered apology or claim. I felt the cool of the hallway brush my cheek as I cleared the door, the air sharper, cleaner, less burdened. My spine straightened without force. I let my palm flatten against the doorframe a moment before pushing forward. Inside, the spotlight lingered over the empty chair, the napkin folded neat and small like a flag of truce no one would pick up, the glass catching flame that no lips would press. I didn't ask them to see me. They did.